I've grown over 200 plants and honestly I've killed more than I want to admit. Over the years I've learned the hard way what works and what doesn't when it comes to keeping plants healthy and happy. In this video I'm sharing every dumb mistake I made along the way so that you don't have to waste time or lose plants like I did. Let's get your plants thriving. And this video is sponsored by Trellises, but more on that in a jiffy. When I got my bird of paradise about 4 months ago, I knew he needed sun. That part I did know. These are big dramatic plants that bloom when you give them loads of light. So naturally I put him right next to my brightest window, southwest facing and full sun. Perfect, right? Well, not exactly. The problem was that a few of the leaves were resting directly against the glass, and within a couple of days I noticed big brown patches. Crispy, dry and definitely not part of the vibe I was going for. It turns out while bird of paradise loves sun, it doesn't love being pressed up against the window, nor does any plant for that matter. Glass doesn't just let light through, it can magnify it. So instead of basking, those leaves were basically getting slow roasted. It's like giving a plant a sunbed and forgetting to set a timer. So I've given him a haircut and turned him around, and now the leaves face away from the window and into the room. Not great for when I want to walk past him, but at least he's still in that lovely bright spot, but with no leaf to glass contact. So yeah, some plants need sun, but apparently not the full burn your face off kind. When I first got into plants all those many moons ago, the idea of pruning made me weirdly anxious, like I was going to ruin everything with just one wrong snip. I'd stare at a wonky, leggy mess of a plant and think, well, it's not ideal, but at least he's alive, let's not anger him. I imagined pruning as this precise botanical surgery that required deep expertise, sharp shears and nerves of steel, but in reality it's just snipping a stem, that's it. Plants want to grow. Most of the time, pruning actually encourages better, bushier growth, but it took me ages to believe that. The coleus is the perfect example. This is how he looks without any pruning. Not bad, right? Well, a few strategic cuts can make him branch out into something more like this. More stems to marvel at, and what's not to love about that, eh? Most plants want nothing more than to branch out, although there is one very popular plant that really doesn't that I'll come to later in this video, so we should help them do just that. These days I'm much more confident. If something's stretched out, flopping over or just looking a bit sad, I prune. They always grow back. One of the biggest things I ignored for way too long was giving my plant something to climb. I thought, it's a houseplant, it'll just grow nicely out of the pot like a little green fountain. But some plants don't want a fountain. Some plants want to climb for their lives, and when they don't get the chance, things start going a bit wrong. I had a pothos that basically turned into a green extension lead. It was long and it was everywhere. It once grew across the windowsill, down the back of the radiator, and made a heroic attempt to scale a floor lamp. I thought this was normal, but really it was just my plant desperately trying to grab hold of something, anything, so it could do what it's meant to do. The leaves got smaller, the stems got weaker, and the whole thing just looked tired. That was the moment I realised climbing plants are climbers for a reason. They're designed to latch onto support so they can grow stronger and push out bigger leaves. When we let them sprawl with nothing to grip onto, we're holding them back without even realising it. That's why I started using Zella, these beautiful trellises by today's video sponsor Trellises. Zella is one of those rare plant accessories that's actually designed to be seen, not like that ugly bamboo stick propping up that plant in the corner of your room. The Zella doesn't just work, it looks like it belongs in your home. The shape is gorgeous, the wood grain is beautiful, it blends in with your decor, and it turns your plant into a sculptural statement rather than just a vine flopping all over the bookshelf. It's also genuinely functional. It's made from sturdy, plant-safe material that doesn't wobble or warp like those bamboo sticks. And the best part is that they are extendable. So when your plant decides he's ready to grow another metre over the weekend, you don't have to dig him up or start from scratch. You just add another piece on top and let him keep climbing. And now Trellises have these nifty little clips that allow you to combine the Zella trellises side by side so that you can really hem that sprawling beast in. These clips are a game changer because you can change the angle easily so that you can have the trellises at any position you want depending on how big and beastly your plant is. Great for making small adjustments for the pot too. Zella has completely changed how some of my plants grow. I've seen bigger leaves, stronger stems and a general look of relief from every climbing plant I've used it on. I've got this philodendron that is a right floppy mess, so I think it's high time I gave him a Zella trellis to support him. They're dead easy to set up, just attach the two trellises together, plonk the feet into the soil and tie the plant onto the trellis. Use the angular clips to keep two trellises side by side so that the plant goes nowhere. There, looks much better, eh? If you get it right, some plants will latch their aerial roots onto the wood and you won't have to tie them up anymore. Now, Trellises are offering you an exclusive 15% discount on all their products for a limited time only. So check out all the details in the description and happy shopping! Are any of your plants looking like this? The stem gets thin and stretched out, almost like they're trying to reach for something just out of reach. The colour fades, and instead of standing tall and proud, the plant leans like he's desperately trying to catch the sun. If you're thinking maybe he just needs a bit more love, then you're halfway there. What you're actually seeing is called etiolation. Fancy word, but simple problem. Your plant isn't getting enough light. He's basically starving for sunshine and responds by stretching and growing leggy, trying to find more light. I remember my snake plant that was shoved into a dark corner because I'd heard they tolerate low light. At first, he looked fine, but then the leaves got lanky, pale, and started leaning dramatically towards the nearest window, as if he was on a mission to get a better view of the outdoors. Low light tolerance doesn't mean no light tolerance. This is a trap many folks fall into. Low light just means that they can survive there, but survival isn't thriving. So if your plants are stretching and fading, they're basically screaming for more light. Now the solution to this guy's leggy look is this: don't fear the prune. Now I made the classic mistake of thinking my succulents could survive on neglect alone. I'd water them so rarely I basically turned them into little desert sculptures. I mean, that's the advice, right? Water sparingly. At first they seemed fine, but after a while the leaves started shrivelling. Succulents store water in the leaves so they're great at hanging on during dry spells, but they do still need watering to stay plump and healthy. The trick is to water deeply but infrequently, letting the soil dry out completely between watering sessions. If you just give them a tiny splash now and then, they'll never get enough moisture to thrive. And if you go too long without water, the leaves will shrivel and growth will slow or stop entirely. I used to bring new plants home like they were innocent little guests. Welcome, here's your spot next to Mr. Monstera. Make yourself at home. And for a few days, everything would seem fine. No signs of trouble. Then, out of nowhere, spider mites, or fungus gnats, or mealybugs that clearly came from somewhere and definitely didn't buy a train ticket on their own. It turns out new plants are like mystery parcels. You don't know what's inside until it's already in your house and possibly crawling onto everything else you own. I once brought home a cute little calathea from the shop, and within 2 weeks I was spraying pesticide on half the conservatory. Now every plant goes into quarantine like it's just flown in from the apocalypse. 2 weeks minimum, somewhere away from the others with no touching, no mingling and definitely no sleepovers. It sounds dramatic, but it saved me so much trouble. Pest outbreaks are a pain to deal with and they spread fast if you give them a chance. Treat every new plant like it might be carrying something. It's not rude, it's just good plant parenting. You can always introduce them to the rest of the plant gang once you know they're not harbouring any tiny terrors. This one really got me. I didn't realise until I started losing plants. Back when I was in my surely this is fine phase of plant care, I was watering everything like clockwork. I had a good routine too and the plants looked okay and I thought I was doing great. What I wasn't doing was lifting the nursery pots out of the decorative ones after watering. I just pour in and move on with my life. No checking, no thinking. And then, the smell. One plant started going droopy and then another. One leaf yellowed and fell off and I was still telling myself that it's probably just adjusting. Finally, something made me take a closer look. There was a solid 3 inches of stagnant water sitting at the bottom and it smelled like a forgotten pond. It turns out if you water a plant blindly, you run the risk of water just collecting and staying there. Who knew? The soil stays soggy, the roots suffocate and before long you're dealing with root rot. all because I didn't take 2 seconds to check underneath. So the solution is simple. Check your plant isn't sat in a swamp before you add water. It's such a simple thing, but I learned the hard way. I remember the first time I chopped my monstera thinking, this is it. This is how I unlock the full bushy potential. I'll prune him and he'll branch like a tree. I had this vision of him turning into a big, beautiful, lush, multi-stemmed showpiece, so I snipped, clean cut just above the node, and then I waited and waited some more. And what actually happened? A new leaf came out, but from the same vine. No dramatic branching, no fork in the road, just the plant saying, thanks for the trim, anyway I'll keep going in a straight line now. It turns out monsteras don't naturally branch from pruning the way some plants do. Sure, they'll push out new growth points, but they don't split into multiple stems like a coleus would, for example. I thought I'd done something wrong, I thought I'd failed the plant, or worse, that he hated me. Nope, it's just how they grow. Some plants branch when you prune, and some don't. It's not a reflection on you, it's just biology. Now I know that if I want a bushier monstera, I need to pot multiple plants in the same pot. The single vine will always vine. Grow bulbs are amazing. Seriously, they can turn a sad, struggling plant into a thriving superstar with the right light boost. I'm a huge fan of Sansi grow lights and use them all the time. In fact, I've got 10 just in my living room. But here's a little warning from experience. Don't put the bulb too close to the plant. I learned this the hard way with my Aglaonema. I had a grow bulb tucked in just a bit too close, thinking this will give him all the light he needs. Instead, the leaves started turning yellow and brown at the edges. The bulb was blasting heat right onto the leaves, basically giving my poor plant a mini sunburn. Grow bulbs give off a surprising amount of heat, so if they're too close, they can dry out and damage those delicate tropical leaves. The key is to keep a bit of distance, maybe 12 inches or so, and angle the light so it's bright but not scorching. Earlier, I talked about how plants really need support to climb and thrive, and I've raved about trellises for both being functional and stylish. But then there are moss poles. They're a classic alternative. Plenty of plant parents swear by them because they mimic a natural tree trunk and encourage those aerial roots to latch on. Sounds perfect, right? Well, yeah and no. I love the idea of moss poles, but I have way too many of them, and let me tell you, it's becoming a bit of a full-time job. Unlike the trellis, moss poles require constant care. If you want the full story on why I'm slowly falling out of love with moss poles, I made a whole video about it here, so check that out for all the messy, wet details.